Okay. Uh,
What's your name and how old are you?
I was 18 years old. My name is Thelma Sorensen.
And it's Valentine's Day 2018.
At the time, my name was Thelma Kanahili. I was still single. And that morning, I was having a pillow fight with a friend. Uh, uh, and we heard pop, pop, and wondered what was going on. And I thought, well, they might be having a practice. And
On the military base?
yeah, well, no, in the city. This was in the city. And I couldn't understand why they were having you know, practice shooting. And then somebody called us and told us, turn on the radio. And we did. And there was um, a report that this was war. And we couldn't understand it. And from that time on, that morning on, everything changed. And there was no church. There was no buses running. They stopped everything. And we couldn't understand it. And we heard the report from Pearl Harbor, and that all the ships were being attacked. And we lived in the valley, and we didn't have anything to do with it, but we were very concerned because there was no traffic, bus traffic. Everything stopped. There was blackout that night, and then everything changed. And from then on, our lives changed. And I worked at Pearl Harbor. No, I worked at Hickam Air Force Base at that time. And I didn't know how I was going to get to work. And for the 3 days, there was no transportation to Hickam. And so on the third day, I got, Pearl Harbor is next to Hickam Air Force Base. And already I could see pock marks from the airplanes strafing the barracks building. And I said, oh my, there were so many Air Force men killed that day. And I worked at the dispensary, and they told me that they had bodies on the stacked up on well, what you call that? Anyway, they had bodies stacked up, but when I got there that day, everything was cleaned up, and they had moved the bodies to the morgue at the hospital, at the main hospital. And I was, that day, first day, they had me typing dog tags, because before then they didn't require that military had to wear dog tags. But from that day on, they had to wear dog tags, and and and, uh, and that's how it was.
So you ended up, is that something you ended up continuing to do, or was you just because you were helping out at that time?
I was employed by the military, by the Air Force, and I kept working for them. And I worked in different, as I got upgraded, I worked different offices, and
All on the Air Force Base? All of the jobs were on the Air Force Base?
yes,
And how long did you work there?
for 10 years. But I got married in between, and
And you
had,
worked there after you were married?
yes, until I had Judy, and I didn't work anymore, and it uh, uh, took took a break.
How did it go back to normal pretty quickly, or did it ever go back to normal? Or did life change completely after that day?
Life changed.
Said she had no teenage
Oh,
years
it
after
changed.
life
Uh, no, no,
Social life?
yeah, no social life. Uh, we rode bicycles at night in the evening, and they had curfew, and that's
So they had no evening activities anymore at
no
night?
no church activities. Everything closed down at night.
So did you have to have that curfew or black out your curtains for the whole entire war, or just for a little while?
For 3 years.
3 years you had to have blackout curtains and
Yeah.
curfew at night.
Yes, yes.
I even remember blackout.
You do?
I can remember that was one of the impressions I remember.
Wow.
Us coming down the shades.
Wow. Anything else in particular you remember about Pearl Harbor? So did you visit the harbor and see the ships blown up or anything?
Not till years later.
So where were you in relation to Pearl Harbor? What island? Were you on the same island? Were you?
I was on the island of Oahu, and Pearl Harbor is on Oahu, and I lived there all along.
So you were actually on the islands
Yeah.
of Pearl Harbor the
Yeah.
day Pearl Harbor was
Yeah.
bombed.
Yeah. Now my father said he at that morning um, he and no some fishermen were on a fishing on the island of Oahu, and they saw all these planes coming in with the rising sun on their wings, and they knew something was going on, and they saw one plane uh, change course, and it was heading towards the temple, the Laie temple, because it looked suspicious. And he thought, well, the the the, uh, the pilot be- later became a Mormon because he, after the war, he looked into it. He said it looked like a magic building, and and he couldn't understand.
He couldn't release his bombs.
Yeah, he bombed it 3
He
times.
tried and they didn't work?
He bombed it 3 times and it didn't work. And so he gave up and flew off. And then after the war, he looked into it and became a Mormon. And that was interesting. And my father said that was true. The fishermen saw that.
So they saw the plane veer off
Yeah,
to the temple, something
yeah,
around or whatever,
yeah,
and then leave
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Because they were fishing right off the
yeah.
shore. by
They
the
were.
temple.
They
So
were.
they told their story about it flying over and not bombing, and then later he told his story.
Yeah,
See, they came in from the north.
yeah.
That's the north shore where
Okay.
the temple is. So the planes would have flown right over like here. Would have flown right over the
So
temple.
the planes flew right over the temple, tried to bomb it, and it didn't bomb. That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. The Lord protected it.
So if you were at work, so it was nice that it was a Sunday morning because you weren't at the air base because it was Sunday, right?
Yes,
So if you had been at work and they bombed it, would you have been in danger?
yes.
So the place that you worked, the commissary, was bombed?
No,
Or
the dispensary.
the dispensary was
Yeah.
bombed?
Yes, it was bombed.
So it was a blessing that it was on a Sunday morning.
Yes. Everything was bombed and strafed. They call it strafed. You could see the marks.
Bullets.
So the strafe is the bullets from the
Yeah, strafe marks
That's crazy.
on the buildings, and they never fixed it. They just left it as is.
So even today it's like that?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
I don't know. I think those buildings are
Are they?
yes.
Well, I know they
Yeah,
not.
No. Interesting.
yes.
So were you able to date very much with all those cute servicemen over there?
Yeah.
That's what she married.
Oh, did she?
And I met Jute at the office where I worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be 96 in April?
Yes.
And what's your birthday? April?
19th. At the time I was 18.
But what's your birthday date?
April 19th,
What year?
1922.
1922.
Yeah.
You're going to be hitting 100 here soon.
No.
You still have all your faculties, well, your mind is sharp.
You know, I felt sad because a father and son answered the call. They thought they were needed at Pearl Harbor, and they took off from Kaneohe and headed to Pearl Harbor, and they were bombed and killed.
Oh,
A father and son, and I knew them, and that was sad.
So did any of your brothers or sisters, I don't know a lot about that, they serve at all?
No, they were young.
So that's a blessing. Oh, that's right, because you were older. Huh?
Yeah,
And living with your aunt or something?
I was living with some church members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great history story lesson right there. I learned things I didn't know. So that's wonderful. So thank you for sharing. I know it's been a long day for you, but I'm grateful that you were willing to share that. Thanks for piping in.
Well, thank you for asking. You know, another year I might have forgotten. I've forgotten that.
Oh, I don't know. I would forget, but you're pretty on it. Well, we sure love you. Thank you for sharing.